Good morning. We welcome you to our service here at Girard First. My name is Don Smith, and for wherever you are this morning, we wish you well. We hope that you are enjoying this Lord's Day. I have a couple of brief announcements that we'd like to share with you. First, beginning next Sunday, we will be moving this service time from the 9:30 time where we are today to 11 o'clock. So from 9:30 to 11, same time, please, to prepare to join us for communion together as a family. Even though we are apart, we want to be together. So we ask that you prepare bread and a small quantity of juice so that you can join us for communion next Sunday. And lastly, there is still time for you to submit to Pastor Vicky a question that might be burning in your heart for the Ask the Pastor series that will begin in May. If you'd like to submit a question, you may send it to her via Facebook or text, and I'm sure that if you call the church office, she will still take your question. And that's all we have in terms of announcements for this morning, so let's turn our heart to the Lord in music.
Hi, I'm Pastor Vicki. I'm so glad that you're worshiping with us today. And I just want to introduce our speaker for today. I'm so excited about this. Tim Glass and Kim was with us this morning, and we're so glad that they are here. Tim is going to share his story from AA. And you've heard me say many times before, if you want to know what the church is supposed to look like, go downstairs in our basement on Monday evening. We have people who are in every walk of life, people who are together helping each other along, some who are just beginning, and some who've been doing this for quite a while. And every one of them cares that everybody else makes it. So I definitely want you to be able to hear his story that he's going to share. And I'm going to invite Tim to come on up and to share his story and be able to hear how God has brought him to where he is today and how we might be able to follow along as well. God bless you, Tim.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Glass, and I am a recovering alcoholic and an addict. That song was beautiful. You know, I was reading Alcoholics Anonymous, and I have been freed. You know, when I was reading those words and listening to you sing, it was like, wow, that's what life is all about right there. And that's what the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous has done to me. Freed me from the chain of bondage. And I'll get into that story, but it was like, that really, really touched me when you did that. Two of the most important dates in my life that I can share with you would be July 25th of 1985. Working for my father, a family business. You know, I was driving a tank truck coming out of Berlin Center, and I got run off the road, and the truck rolled over, blew up, and caught on fire, and I was trapped inside of it. And I spent 3.5 months in the Akron Burn Center. Changed my life forever. Another date that changed my life again was September 21st of 2004, the day that I surrendered my will and my life over to the care of a God of my understanding, and that is my sobriety date. After that accident, you know, my alcoholism and my addiction started to take over my life. I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of. I did a lot of things that hurt the people that were the closest to me, that loved me the most, who cared about me the most. Those were the ones I was doing the most damage to, and I couldn't see it at the time. I didn't think I was hurting anybody. I thought I was just doing it for myself, you know. Self-will run riot, as we call it. And that went on for many, many years like that. You know, usually from behind the podium, I get an hour to share my story, but I'm going to cut it in half today. You know? But, and like I said, that went on for many, many years. You know, and through my addiction, you know, it just got worse. You know, every day got worse. I ended up getting a divorce after 16 years of marriage. And after that divorce is when it really got crazy. You know, I started doing things that I thought I would never do. You know, I've done, you know, I started smoking crack cocaine. You know, I started cocaine, I'd drink whiskey, beer, 24/7, you know. My life was in such shambles. I didn't know how to live life without it, you know, because I would use all those things to cover up my emotions and the feelings that I was feeling that I didn't want to feel anymore. And I used the alcohol and drugs to cover those up. Finally, and like I said, that happened for years. Probably good, solid 8, 9 years, I lived my life that way. And what happened to me is I got myself into some trouble with my addiction, and I was looking at 6 to 10 years in prison for the things I was doing. Well, at that time, I was never really in any trouble. It was the first time I did get in trouble, I should say. And I had two choices, 6 to 10 years in prison or 6 months in NeoCap. which is the Northeast Ohio Correction Alternative Program. 6 months NeoCap, 6 to 10 years in prison. 6 months in NeoCap sounded like the easier, softer way. So that was the very first decision, good decision I had made in a very long time. At that time, NeoCap, it holds 90 men. At that time, on September 21st, when I went to court, which is my sobriety date, there was no beds open up in NeoCap. So they were going to release me, and when a bed opened up in NeoCap, they were going to call me, and I had to report that day. I had no problem with that. Well, that morning, and the Judge Logan, he had changed his mind about releasing me and having them call me. He thought it'd be a good idea that I would wait in the Trumbull County Jail till a bed opened up in NeoCap. That was God doing for me what I could not do for myself. Because if that judge would have released me that morning, I may not be standing here this morning. So I went to the Trumbull County Jail, and I'll never forget the first night I was in that county jail. It was actually one of the very, very first times. It was the very first time I was ever in jail. I was on the J-Pod. It was full. I had what they call a boat. And if you don't know what a boat is in a county jail, it's a little plastic thing like a canoe. You sleep on the floor because all the bunks were taken. And I'll never forget that, And I had bounced in and out of many rehabs in between all these times, trying to save my job, trying to save my marriage, trying to do it for my parents, trying to do it for all the wrong reasons. And it never worked. It started to work for me when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and for myself. You got to want this for yourself. So when I got when I was in there that first night in the county jail, like I said, I bounced in and out of rehabs and in and out of the rooms of AA. I started to take that first hard, honest look at myself. The things I was doing, the places I was going, the people I was running with, and where I was at. And at that moment, I had that moment of clarity. I knew something had to change. And that's when I made that first honest prayer to the God of my understanding, which I didn't even have in my life at this time. And I said, God, please help me. I didn't see no burning bushes. I didn't see no bright lights. But I had this ease and comfort come over me like I have never felt before. And from that moment to this moment right here, I've never had the desire to pick up a drink or a drug. And that's the miracle of God working in my life and the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous working with me not even knowing it. So the next morning, the sheriff come by and asked if anybody wanted to go to an AA meeting, because they bring AA meetings into the county jail. And I volunteered to go to my first AA meeting, and I'll never forget it. The gentleman that brought that meeting in is a good friend of mine today, still in recovery. And he came in, he introduced himself. I introduced myself to him, told him a little bit about my story. He told me his story, because that's how AA works, one alcoholic talking to another. And I talked to him, like I said, and I got to go to 2 meetings in that county jail while I was in there. I ended up getting out of there. I spent 16 days in that county jail waiting for a bed. Longest 16 days of my life. I ended up going to NeoCap, and NeoCap, it's a lockdown facility. It's a step right before you go to prison. They give you this opportunity to go in there and change your life and do the next right thing. So when I got to NeoCap, I got myself another big book. We call our book of Alcoholics Anonymous, a big book. It's the second book next to the Bible, in my opinion, man, because it saved my life. And I started to read the book, and I started to find myself in that book. And I started to work the 12-step programs of Alcoholics Anonymous while I was there. Step one, admitted that I was powerless over alcohol and that my life had become unmanageable. Very, very easy step for me to take because my life was unmanageable, very unmanageable when I was powerless over alcohol and drugs. Step two is came to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. I didn't even know what sanity was because the lifestyle and the things I was doing was completely insane. But I had that faith. I had heard about faith, and I had to have some kind of faith to believe in a power greater than myself. And step three is we make that decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God of our understanding. It was the hardest step for me to take for myself because I blamed God for everything that was going on in my life. My burn, my addiction, my lost marriage, my loss of my family and friends. I blamed God for everything. I didn't want nothing to do with the God thing. And there was a lady in there. Her name was Miss Cleo. She was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I did not know this at that time. And she knew I was struggling with God. And she invited me into her office, and she said, Tim, you don't need a God of your understanding right now. What you need is a higher power. You need a power greater than yourself. And she said, look out my window here. It could be anything out there as long as it's not you. Because I was my higher power at that time. And she goes, I want you in my office tomorrow, and I want to know what your higher power is. I said, all right, Miss Cleo. The next morning, I woke up in my little room in NeoCap. I looked out my window, and there was a field there. And a winter storm had come by. And all these little trees were all blown over and hanging over through this winter storm. And there was this big oak tree in the middle of that field. And it stood tall. And it stood there. And for my 6 months while I was in NeoCap, I used that oak tree as my higher power because it was something greater than myself. I was 2 years sober, and I went to a conference. And, they sell a lot of little things at these conferences. I don't know if anybody can see this, but I have this little pin I found at that conference. It is a white flag with the letters HP on it. And what that stands for is to surrender to a higher power. And through coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and listening to the people in the rooms talk about their God is how I found my God. Through the rooms of AA and Alcoholics Anonymous, and I will always, always be grateful for that. Step four is we make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. It's a tough thing to do, but it must be done. I had to write down all the things I was doing, about me. I found out my character defects, my shortcomings. We got to write those down and work through those things. Step five, admitted to God and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. I was one of those people that never shared. Once I shared that was another feeling that I'll never forget. The first time I did that fifth step, I let all that crap out. It was gone. It was gone. 7 and 8, we make a list of all the people we have harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. People were so tired of hearing me say how sorry I am. I'm not going to do this again. Sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. People were tired of hearing that. Today I let my actions speak louder than my words. And I carry that on a daily basis. My actions speak louder. And we had to forgive a lot of people. I had to forgive a lot of people for the things they had done to me. And on that list, I made that list of people I had to make amends to. When I did that list, my sponsor said, you left out one person. I said, well, who did I leave out? He said, yourself. It was the hardest thing for me to do was to forgive myself for the things I was doing. And my sponsor and I, we sat down and we talked. And he said, God has forgiven you for all your sins and everything that you have done. Who are you not to be able to forgive yourself? And at that moment, I was able to forgive myself for the things I've done. I don't have to suffer. I don't have to drink, and I don't have to drug to get through those days. You know, our step 10 is continue to take personal inventory of our lives. You know, and I try to do that to the best of my ability and make amends as soon as possible. Step 11 is sought through prayer and meditation to improve your conscious contact with the God of your understanding. This is how I start my day out. I get up in the morning, I have a cup of coffee, I have a few meditation books, you know, walk in dry places, in the care of God, the language of letting go, our 24-hour book, our daily reflection, and courage to change. I read those books. They give you one page every day to read, you know, and it's amazing. It's amazing to me, you know, when I'm going through something, when I read that page that day, how do they know I'm going through that? That's God working in my life and I don't even know it. And step 12 is to carry this message of hope, you know, to the next suffering alcoholic or addict or anybody who needs help. You know, that's my job, is to carry the message of hope to the people out there who needs the help. You know, I talk about that NEO cap. In 2004, when I was in there, they brought the AA meetings in there also. Well, in 2005, they stopped bringing that meeting in there. And by the grace of God and Alcoholics Anonymous, 3 years ago, I started taking that meeting back into that facility. And that's where I'm at every Tuesday night. I take that meeting in there to those men in there to let them know that there's hope in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous if you want it. You know, that's my main purpose, to carry this message and give hope to somebody else who may want to get their life straight and together. You know, and every Tuesday night I pull in the back of that parking lot, and that oak tree is still standing there today. You know, I love seeing that every Tuesday night. My life today, I'm very blessed, very blessed. I have my children in my life today. You know, they want me in their life. You know, I have 5 grandkids today that have their grandfather in their life. And I owe that to Alcoholics Anonymous and God. Because without Alcoholics Anonymous and God, I wouldn't have that in my life today. I'm very blessed. You know, I have a wonderful girlfriend. We've been together 3 years. You know, she has a program, I have a program. We work those separately, and when we have a program together. She has 6 grandchildren, so between us we have 11 grandchildren. And we're part of their lives today. And the best thing about it, they want us to be part of their lives today. You know, and it's just a blessing. You know, with Alcoholics Anonymous in one hand and God in the other hand. I don't have a hand to pick up a drink or a drug. You know, and that's the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, when I was watching that, listening to them sing that song, you know, relieve me, be redeemed. I have been redeemed by the God of my understanding. And trust me, if it can work for a guy like me, it could work for anybody. It could work for anybody. All you got to do is want this. Have a little bit of willingness and come to, and it will work. You know, that's all it takes is a little bit of willingness. You know, happy, joyous, and free. That's me. My name's Tim Glass. May God bless you all.
Thank you, Tim. I wanted you to be able to hear Tim's story because it is a story of hope. It is a story of what God can do when we recognize that we need him, when we recognize that we can't do it on our own. We originally had asked Tim to come and talk to us about forgiving ourselves. We had a series of forgiveness that we were talking about, and it was a very powerful story that he had told me, and I thought, we need to hear this because every one of us struggles with something. Every one of us has an addiction to something that is out of control in our lives. And now, especially now that we're at home, we're stuck, we're bored, we have such a tendency to lean back on those things that aren't God. And I know that his story can help guide us in ours. That if we are willing to step forward and say, we cannot do this on our own, we will find the help that we need. You're not alone, that we are here, and I am continually holding you up before God. If you have something that has come to the forefront because of Tim's story or because of the situation that we're in, I want you to know that you can call, that the distance does not have to mean that you're alone, that we will be here with you and we will help each other through this. God has given us this message. It is the message of Easter. It is the message of resurrection. We have talked about what God can do. Today, we showed you what God can do in one man's life because he allowed God to take control. Today is a great day to say, I want God to be the one who's in control of my life. I want to surrender to him and know that he is going to help me to do something I can't do for myself. We can find that grace and we can find that mercy tree.
On a hill called Calvary stand soul, find your rest and be made whole. Stripes of blood that stain its frame, shed to wash away our shame. From the scars, pure love's released, salvation by the mercy tree. In the sky, between two thieves, on the blameless Prince of Peace, bruised and battered, scarred and scorned, sacred and pierced by thorns. It is finished was his cry. The perfect Lamb was crucified. The sacrifice, our victory. Our Savior chose the mercy tree. Hope when dark, that violent day, the whole earth quaked at love's display. 3 days silent in the boundless body born for heaven's crown. But on the bright and glorious day, when heaven opened up the grave, he's alive and risen indeed. Oh, praise him for the mercy tree. Death has died, love has won. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus Christ has overcome. He has risen from the dead. One day soon we'll see his face, and or suffering. Oh, praise Him for the mercy tree. Death has died, love has won. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus Christ has overcome. He is risen from the dead. Death has died, love has won. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Jesus Christ has overcome. He is risen from the dead. On a hill called Calvary stands an endless mercy tree.
Let's pray. God, we are so grateful. We're so grateful for the tree, the mercy tree from 2,000 years ago that made a difference for time and eternity. And we're grateful for the tree in that field at NCAP that showed that no matter how out of hand things have gotten, no matter how insane things rage, there is something that can stand up in the storm, something we can put our faith in. God, I thank you that you change our lives if we just let you. And so I pray for everyone who's a part of our worship today that we would take that step of faith and say, God, take my life. I give it to you. Thank you for sending Jesus to die for me. Forgive me, save me, and take my life. You are my Lord. I give it to you. And now, would you join me in the prayer that Jesus taught his disciples to say? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. And now, if you want to be part of our final blessing, just wherever you are, just lift your hand as we say, go be Jesus to someone, forgiving them, forgiving yourself, and looking to God for that mercy tree. God bless you. Amen.